So
Yeah.
let's start. Hi, everybody. This is Community CPA's 3:00 p.m. webinar time. And today we have tremendous information and great participants and representatives from state government to join us. And we have been accumulating your questions for the last, a month? And since COVID-19. So a lot of those questions, and I think it's best to be answered by experts from the state. And I will introduce them to you, and let's follow the slide we have put together. And if you see the bottom of your screen, you know that you can put in question and answers. If we run out of time, this is a 1-hour session, then we will for sure get back to you with your question and answers. Now let's just start, and participants are still coming in by 10. They're still not done. Let's just go to our slides. All right, so we're focusing on the state of Iowa's efforts to elevate impact of COVID-19, and the guest we have today here, and lead by Beth Townsend. And Beth Townsend is the director of Iowa Workforce Development. And one thing I want to highlight about her is that she is a director of the state government agency, but she also is an attorney. She also is a veteran of the United States Air Force. So very powerful experience, and I am so glad that Beth is here. I'm so impressed with the histories that you have. You know, when people Google you, you just shine through from Google. And Jill Lippincott is Ashley. Jared is here too.
He's also here, yes.
All right. And Jill is a lady I known for a long, long time. Just a second.
Share the screen.
I did. Did I share the screen?
You share this. That one.
I shared this one.
Yeah, you shared this one. Currently you share this one.
Oh, okay. Boy, how do I share the screen? Did I have issues with sharing screen?
Right side. Red button. Stop sharing.
Right button. All right, I am jumping my slide. So, okay, Jill is coming up. And so I know Jill for a long time. And Jill, the first I get to know her is from the Targeted Small Business, where I applied for Community CP certificate. And that's how I got to know Jill. Then after that, I know she is a community leader, and she's a voice of minority and immigrant entrepreneurs at the state capitol. And she also is the project manager for IEDA Targeted Small Business Program, and since 2016. And we also have Tim Riley with us, and Mike Mertens is also accompanying Tim. And Tim is the, if you think of the state, whenever there is a policy made related to sales tax and the use tax and excise tax, and this is the gentleman that he does the policy making, and he's also attorney. And the one thing I know is that he always is a liaison and is the, I call them, they're the managers for submitting the proposals to legislation sections. And he is the gatekeeper of all of these recommendations and rules. And so he is, to me, he's a big shot. So I never wish to talk to Tim because I just think that all the policy is right. So I don't need to talk to him. All right, so let's go to our core reasons to be here today. And we have, at Community CPA, we have over 9,000 small business entrepreneurs that we know. And these people and always encounter issues that is maybe not so typical to a large corporation. And their questions is maybe more unique and more customized to their own needs. So we think that our state has really, since the COVID-19, has done many things already. And I have all of these policymakers and agency leaders to be here to answer those questions, to tell us what is going on, what will be happening, or what had already happened, and to just make us known for all the efforts the state put in to help small business to survive and to address issues particularly with a small business and focus on state resources. We're not talking about PPP today. We're not talking about stimulus check today. We are all Iowa. We're here to understand Iowa. So 3 key people here, and they're coming from 3 different areas. Let me use my very simple term to explain how I understand what they are representing, what they are doing. For example, for Iowa Economic Development Authorities, and to make it really simple to understand, my understanding of it is that they are a state agency to use state resources to help businesses to either expand or to survive. So that is what they are doing. So with COVID-19, they play a big role. And Iowa Workforce Development, where Beth is leading, and this is place that developing Iowans, developing workforce. So they are the people aspect of economic development. Then Iowa Department of Revenue, we know them. They give us a form to fill up. We pay taxes and we pay sales taxes. We just give money to the state when we are successful. And when we are in difficulties, the Department of Revenue also come up with the rules with remedies to help in the difficult time. So they are the one managing the money. So with all of these key players here, I just think that we should be able to tackle and what we need to do today. And let's get to our questions. And any comments from any one of you, Beth, Jill, and Tim? Any questions? Any comments? You can unmute yourself and start talking.
This is Beth. Did you want me to comment? I'm sorry.
Sure, Beth.
Okay, great. Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the opportunity to be here to talk with the group today. We have a lot going on in terms of assistance to Iowans and especially the self-employed. And so I'm happy to answer questions and give an update on what we're doing at Iowa Workforce Development.
Jill. Thank you, Beth.
Yeah, it's very similar. I'm excited to be here to answer questions that I think will be hopefully helpful to your audience, and look forward to being able to provide more information out to business owners who I know are looking for all information and opportunities right now.
Any comment from you, Tim?
Sure. Yeah, Mike and I both are happy to be here to try to answer the questions that you guys had sent in advance this morning, and then whatever else comes up. Obviously, some stuff we don't have all the answers to yet, but we're continuing to work and hope to provide some answers for you today.
Great. So what I will do now, and I will start with IEDA. I'll start with Jill. And while one question posted to Jill, and with Jill's answer, if Beth and Tim, if you have, if you would like to add into the question, please just pop in, and we want to have that free flow answers so that for allowing our participants to get as much knowledge as possible for this hour they're spending with us. So the question from one of our clients and for Jill is that they want to know what are the general programs is out there at IEDA that would help small businesses or individuals who are sole proprietors. They're like really little. They don't have employees and they just one person. What kind of program they should be looking at to get some help?
Sure. Well, one of the programs that we created very early on was the Targeted Small Business Sole Operator Program. This was a grant application that combined a traditional grant application, along with the requirement to be eligible and certified as a targeted small business. So the Targeted Small Business Program is a program that the state of Iowa has run for a number of years, since 1985, in fact, and it's a certification program. The state essentially acts as a third-party certifier to verify the businesses are 51% or more owned by women, minorities, individuals with disabilities, and service-disabled veterans. This program has a number of benefits for those business owners. They are invited to early awareness of procurement opportunities with the state of Iowa. They have access to a web portal where they can review opportunities 48 hours in advance. They're listed publicly on a directory for others to find as well, specifically our state buyers. And then in recent years, we've turned that program really into a growing community of business owners who can connect with one another to leverage what they're learning as small business owners. I think the one thing we heard over and over from small business owners is that they often feel alone, and I imagine even more so these days. So we have utilized the Targeted Small Business Program to be a networking hub. We hold networking events around the state. We also work with various partners to send out information to businesses about the workshops being offered by our partners, educational opportunities, or things that they just might want to be aware of. So that program in and of itself is a free program. It's no cost to get certified. It does require an application and a process, some documentation in order to get certified. But that was one of the requirements for the grant, is that those businesses that are eligible and have gone through that application review for eligibility, then also submit a grant application and would be eligible for grant consideration. And that was limited to those that were sole operators. So as you said, those individuals who were running their business on their own, they didn't have employees on payroll, and were looking for something that can help them keep them moving forward through the next 30 days, in addition to all of the other resources that were provided through our various state and federal partners as well.
So someone was asking that once they become a TSB, so do they become a TSB forever, or there is a restricted time or restricted criteria they have to be in order to be a TSB?
Sure. It's a 2-year renewal. So we do ask that they renew every few years. That helps us ensure that the business ownership hasn't changed, which might make them ineligible, but also just allows us to touch base with them and get to know their story. So we are continuously trying to know our TSBs to share their stories as well. So we ask them every 2 years to renew by providing us not quite as much information with their initial application, but just a little bit of documentation. And then again, like I said, that gives us just a better idea of who they are. And I know that's how you and I met, and have a much better appreciation for all that you do as a result of the Targeted Small Business Program connection.
So the other question came up very often with us is that they want to know, and if they used to be a TSB, then in 2 years' time, they didn't renew that, timely, and how quickly that renewal would come in.
Sure. So a couple of things that we did when we took this program over here at Iowa Economic Development right about 4 years ago was revamp the renewal system. So we now send reminders 90 days and 60 days in advance via email, as well as 30 days and a mailed renewal application, because we know small business owners are busy. This is one of those things you put on your list when you have time for. So we even give you 30 days past your renewal. And if we haven't heard from you at that point, we start to look at closing the application. But if you are in contact with us and say, hey, I'm working on this, here's some of the documentation, I'll get the rest of it to you, we can usually extend it for a short amount of time past that date. We try to be lenient because, again, we know that sometimes you haven't filed this year's taxes quite yet, and you fall in that time of March where you need to provide taxes for the documentation and maybe you don't have them yet. So things like that we're pretty understanding about. Once we get an application, and I will say outside of the grant application being open, we had a number of applicants, as you can imagine, for TSP certification in the last month. Outside of having a grant available, our staff is pretty easily able to turn those around within 3 to 5 business days so that you at least know where you stand. We might still need some more documents, but then at least you've got some information from us about the next steps. Now, that has certainly been not the case in terms of currently we've been a little delayed in our processing times. We are still trying to make sure we go through all of those. And certainly for those that are our existing TSBs that are applying for their renewals, in addition to the new ones coming through, we're tracking those, we're making sure that we follow up with you. And if you have questions, you can always reach out as well.
Great. Do you have a good example of a TSB certified business, how they become so successful in terms of utilizing the resources within the state? Do you have a best practice you can share?
Sure. Well, we've got so many great stories from small business owners that it's hard to pick one. I know that sounds cliche, but I think there's just so many different benefits that individuals have taken advantage of. There's one business owner who quit her job at a very large retailer and was a fashion designer and came to Iowa and set up her business here as a clothing designer. And is now selling worldwide. And as a part of just being identified through the program as a woman-owned business, she's been able to promote herself that way. Another business owner had a product that he was interested in selling to some grocery chains. The grocery chains often have various programs that allow for extra benefits for individuals who might have third-party credentials as a woman or minority-owned small business. And he reached out and said, hey, I have a state level certification. Would you accept that? And this grocery chain wasn't even in Iowa, but they did accept his Iowa certification as a minority small business owner. And so oftentimes we suggest doing that first before you might seek out other third-party credentialing, because it may save you some funds because other credentials may cost money to get certified. So those are two examples of businesses who aren't even doing business with the state of Iowa, but utilizing their certification in other ways. But I will say the state of Iowa purchases a number of items, goods, and services from our targeted small businesses every year it usually averages between $40 and $50 million purchases from targeted small businesses alone. So our state buyers are looking to do business with TSBs. We're often advocating for that as well. And so I think there's multiple ways to benefit from the program, whether it's a certification that you use outside with other vendors or to your customers or with the state buyers themselves.
That is great. And I do know several people who are part of the TSP program and really benefited from becoming the member. I will say that the benefit is not just about this sole operator grant we're talking about for COVID-19. It is really long lasting, and it's almost kind of like you belongs to a family. You just need to be committed to belongs to the targeted small business family, then utilize all the tools that inside of this family and to advance your business. And I think it's something that worth of a consideration if you're not yet a TSB certified small business. Agree with me, Jill?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Yang.
Yeah.
appreciate that. I think this is one of those programs we've definitely promoted over the years. It has become, more people have become aware of it because of the grant program. It has raised the profile certainly, but we agree there are more benefits than this short-term grant program. We think the long-term benefits of being a part of the community are immense.
That's great. Thank you, Jill. And then let's move on to, with our time, and let's move on to Beth. And we have several of really hot questions from people. Some of those questions showed up on our question list 3-4 times. So one of those ones is, what is new at the unemployment benefit level since COVID-19 for the state of Iowa?
Well, we have fundamentally redeployed our entire agency to processing unemployment insurance claims and or providing customer service. So before we had about 130 people who worked in the unemployment insurance division. We've now, we have over 500 now who are working in that area to make sure we can process and pay the claims as quickly as we get them. I think what people either don't understand or maybe forget is many of the new programs that are created by Congress to provide expanded unemployment benefits to individuals who are self-employed, for instance, or the additional $600 weekly payment, or extended benefit payments, an additional 13 weeks. These are all new programs, so they require new processes, new application processes, new review processes, and then separate from that, they also require new processes for payment, because most of those benefits are coming from federal funds and not from our UI trust fund. So we've had to really operate on the fly to create and develop the applications and processes necessary to implement these huge programs. And I think we've been fairly successful doing it. I know some people, you know, when you tell them they're going to get a benefit, they want it the next day, and it just doesn't work that way. But we've been able to start paying many of the new payments within 10 to 14 days of when they're authorized, which is really remarkable, because probably most Iowans may not understand or appreciate that there's only maybe 3 or 4 states in the country who are paying the self-employed claims right now today, and we're paying them. So we're one of the leading states in the country in terms of being able to get these claims approved and paid and out the door. The $600 weekly benefit claims, we're also paying those. We started paying those last week, paid out $61 million last week to over 93,000 Iowans. And so we'll continue paying those forward. We're working right now on the process to pay the retroactive $600 weekly benefits, because that's a separate process. So that program was authorized the 29th of March. We started paying those claims moving forward about the 13th and 14th of April. So the people that were eligible on the 29th of March, there's about a 2-week gap that we are working on now to get those 2 weeks of payments out to people to bring everybody current. We will also start working on getting the process implemented to pay the extended benefit payments, the additional 13 weeks for those individuals who have exhausted their unemployment benefits prior to the pandemic. That'll be our next process, and that'll probably take another week or 2 before we get that implemented, because we've prioritized these other programs. So we've just, we've redeployed our staff, retrained our staff to work in customer service, either answering phone calls, answering emails, or both, in terms of responding to questions related to unemployment insurance. We have instituted mandatory overtime, and I think people sometimes forget when they get frustrated that they can't get in and get somebody on the phone right away, maybe don't appreciate that our staff as an agency is working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and have been since the 16th of March, in order to get all of these programs implemented, to get all of the claims processed, and to provide as much customer assistance as we possibly can. So we've reworked our webpage. There is a wealth of information on our webpage. We are constantly updating it. And I think a lot of the phone calls and emails that we get could be answered just by going to the webpage, taking some time, scrolling through the different programs, watching the videos that we have shot that show the screen-by-screen process to file for unemployment, whether it's a traditional unemployment claim, meaning you work for an employer and have been laid off, or you're self-employed, which is a new process. And so we also created a video to show you screen by screen how to fill out and apply for those types of claims. We also have webinars we've hosted, we've recorded and posted. Many of the questions and answers in those webinars are the same questions people are calling and asking us now or sending us emails. So there's really a lot of information available already that people just need to take some time, look through the website and find it. And I think they can get their questions answered fairly quickly.
That is such a wealth of, knowledge you just said. Actually, something even for, I felt like I know the process a little bit more, but I did not. I just come to realize that in reality, you have to have a whole set of system to manage the federal grants because they're not your UI account.
That's right.
That is so huge. And I totally, just that little piece, I know that means how many hours of programmers work and, putting in a very short time to make that working. And I had a lot of confusion from client about whether this is UI account or what's going to happen. I am a subcontractor. Beth, I just want you to comment on this to what is the most common subcontractor or sole proprietor mistake that you see on the application? Like,
well,
yeah.
I think what we're seeing for the self-employed or the, people who are independent contractors or earn 1099 income, what we're seeing primarily are mistakes, and not necessarily mistakes, but they maybe don't upload the right documents to establish their income, which we need to have so that we can determine what their benefits would be, because your benefits are based on your income. So, but it's not an easy process, and that's why we put together a video to kind of walk people through screen by screen, because it doesn't always translate exactly to the self-employed experience. And so we wanted to be able to show people how to answer those questions, given it's not exactly a system that's been set up for the self-employed, but should be able to provide them with the answers to their questions. But primarily it is just a matter of getting their documents uploaded so that we would be able to then approve and review their claims.
I have gone to the website and going through those videos you posted. They are helpful.
And if you go to the COVID-19 tab.
I will. And here, let me share the screen.
Okay.
So Catherine, and am I sharing the right screen?
Yeah, and then if you just scroll down the page.
Yes. File your unemployment claim right here.
Right. So there's different banners there, depending on whether you're self-employed or you're filing a more traditional unemployment claim. The PUA claims is what they're called.
See right here, how to file your unemployment benefit if you are self-employed. If I click that, it has a video showing up right here. Yes.
Yep. It takes about 15 minutes to get through that video, but it's pretty helpful if you can have that up with you, while you're walking through your claim. Yeah,
that's great. And in terms of the, there's many people losing their job and they're on unemployment, but I also think that there are also areas of employment is increasing. And is there an area of employment that increasing and need people to go to work in that area? Beth, is there particular opportunities like that?
Well, if you scroll down on our web page, you will see, let me see where it's at. If you go to our homepage, I believe,
Homepage, okay.
homepage, we have and then you scroll down, keep going a little bit
Find a
further.
job right here.
Well, I was going to say on our, go back, would you?
Okay.
And then
Here.
if you, okay, and then scroll down
Mhm.
a little bit further and then see attention right there, webinars or workers impacted by COVID-19.
Yep.
This is a particular page that we've set up for all the employers who are telling us we need workers right now. And so as you can see, it's across all different industries, but these are employers who are looking for our workers and could hire you, you know, almost immediately if you want to follow those links and apply online. They're in desperate need of workers. And so every time an employer sends us an email and says, I'm in need of people, we put them into this webpage so they don't have to go through, so they're more prominent in terms of people who are looking for jobs or looking for employment right now.
Yes.
If they can easily find it on our webpage.
Mhm. So we just literally came into the homepage of workforce development, and it's right here. Temporary job opportunities is right here. Yes,
Yes.
great. And we also have another question, which is related to the subcontractors or employer who had owed money to workforce development. And so in terms of, you know, they were on installment payment, but now with COVID-19 and there's no more working. So Beth, would you comment on the collection procedures and policies right now at workforce development?
Sure. We have waived all repayment requirements before getting benefits for individuals who were in an overpayment or a non-fraud situation. The only individuals who cannot collect unemployment until their debt is repaid to Iowa Workforce Development are those individuals who made fraudulent claims to begin with.
All right. Mhm. So right now, is there a offer in compromise process in the workforce development where the people who had owed money to workforce could negotiating that and to get that paid down during this difficult time?
I think if they wanted to, you know what, if you want to send those emails to me, I will send them to our attorney and then they can reach out and discuss it with the individual involved. That would be fine.
All right. And then this is kind of like in our territory right here. We have a lot of people who actually English as their second language. They don't really have, they just don't have the skill to go on to an English website to understand how to click and how to fill things in. Other than those nonprofit organizations is out there helping, and if they couldn't really locate one, is there a resources or recommended partners that Iowa Workforce Development is working with that they can go for that kind of assistance?
Sure. So if they call us on the phone, we contract with a service called Language Link. So we can get translation services on the call and be able to communicate with individuals. We have yet to come across a language that Language Link was not able to assist us with. Just in the last month, we've communicated with individuals in at least 24 different languages, over 475 calls, and providing 115 hours of service in languages other than English. So we do have that service available. We also have, we have translated much of our information into at least 9 other languages beyond Spanish. And if you, I'm trying to see, it's on our webpage. I will send you the link to the other 9 languages that we have information translated to. We are working to provide even more to be able to, for instance, on our COVID page, provide information on the PUA claims or the FPUC claims in those 9 different languages. We're just in the process of getting all of that translated. And then as soon as we have that, we will post that on our website.
That is so great. And I myself is English as a second language speaker. So I have a deep sympathy for people who are coming to the country and are not able to speak English. And I always say to folks that, first of all, we need you to really learn to speak the language. After all, you're coming to US, the English is the official language. But at the same time, it is just so great to see that the government, the nonprofits are really there trying to capture those needs, and to have those translated into different languages is just a very good gesture for citizens, the second language speaking citizens, to feel being cared. And I just thumbs up, and I really appreciate that. Yes.
Well, we recognize that not everybody speaks English. We also hope that people will be able to understand English at some point after they arrive, but that may not be where they are right now. And so we want to provide as much assistance as possible. And in our documents in multiple languages is actually on our homepage. So if you go back to the homepage and you scroll down, it's right above the large black banner at the very bottom, and there's 9 or 10 different languages there.
Right here?
Yeah. No, scroll to the bottom. Keep going.
To the bottom.
Yeah, you got to go all the way. Are you on the homepage?
Yeah.
I think this is the COVID-19 page. I think you need to go back to the main home screen.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
COVID-19 page here. Yeah.
Now if you scroll to the very bottom,
Uh-huh.
and you see there helpful documents in multiple languages, right above the black box where your arrow is. Right
Oh,
here.
yes.
Yeah.
Click
And
here.
so those are we're working hard to get as much information as we can into each one of those languages that's COVID related. That's what we're working on right now.
That's great. So the languages that are here. So for example, this is the Chinese one. So if we click Chinese one, these are all in Chinese. Very good. Yes. This is the language I know. So.
Oh, good.
Great. All right. Okay, Beth, so good of information there. And I know you deal with people literally on a second basis. So it's a lot of work, and kudos to your staff. And it's a very significant test for your leadership and how your agency can handle all these volumes increased overnight.
Well,
Yeah.
it did. I mean, we went from 0 to warp speed,
Yeah.
literally overnight, as you said, and even and then it doubled and doubled and doubled the first few nights.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to give all credit to my staff. I mean, if people understood or could see how hard their fellow Iowans are working for them to get them the answers that they need to process those claims, to help them get that money. It's really remarkable to see the dedication and professionalism that the staff at IWD is exhibiting. And I just, I know we can't always get to people quite as quickly as we would like or they would prefer, but I hope that everyone will recognize that it's not from a lack of effort or a lack of desire. It's just, we're just trying to help so many people all at the same time.
Yeah. It's a testing. It is a very tough test, but it's obviously working because more and more people are getting their benefit.
Yes.
And even for our phone calls coming to the firm, we can feel that people are getting cared because there's not many more calls saying, where is my money? It's more of, we are okay now. So that's just good.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to add for Jill is that when we had this emergency grant coming up for application, and the questionnaires was developed for business to fill in. And I have to give, as accountant, and I want to comment on that because I really can tell those requirements had so much in mind about small businesses. It is really not something like provide your financial statement, and those terms would even confuse people. So the guidelines was like, give us your month of March. You know, things are really easy to understand. I often told many of my clients that you can literally do it yourself because it's so simple. And that has to, you know, kudos to those designers who definitely designed it with a small business in mind.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
very good job. And I can't say enough because there's many programs was meant for small business, but it come back with a requirement for document that is for a $500,000 or $1 million business, and it just defeat the purposes of, you know, collecting the information. So, all right, let's get to Iowa Department of Revenue. Tim, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So our first question I throw at you is, what are the things a taxpayer should know right now in this COVID-19 time?
Well, I think
Too
the
many.
best thing to know is the department is trying its best to work with taxpayers, understand that this is a difficult time, but it's also important to note that thus far, through the department's actions and the governor's actions both, any taxes that may have been deferred, payments or filings that have been deferred are still going to become due at some point. And so I would urge business owners and other taxpayers to make sure that you're keeping good records of everything right now. If you're not able to make payments or submit filings to the department, make sure you're keeping good records of what you would owe if you were able, and then communicate with the department to be able to figure that out going forward.
So for example, one of our clients couldn't really pay the sales tax that they collected in the month of March. They did collect it for the first 15 days of the month of March. Then after that, the shutdown and everything went south. So they still had a payroll to pay. So they exhausted the sales tax dollars. And obviously they collected, they need to pay. So Tim, what would be your recommendation? You sort of mentioned that in general, but can you specifically talk about what this business owner should do? Now he used the sales tax to compensate, to pay for the employee for the month of March.
Sure. I'm sure that's not an uncommon situation. So the department worked with IEDA a little over a month ago to get this program up and running. Originally, it was a common application. EDA had grants that they were able to award, and the Department of Revenue was able to approve deferrals of tax due and filings. So the EDA grant process was completed a couple weeks ago, but the department is still approving, accepting and largely approving requests for deferrals. So if this, like this one business that you mentioned in particular, if they have not yet applied, I would strongly urge them to fill out the application on our website. It's right from our homepage. It's going to be tough to miss. Our homepage is tax.iowa.gov, and it's just /COVID-19 is where is the direct link to our COVID-19 page, where everything that we have related to it is can be found. And so the tax deferral program relates back to it can reach all the way back to, yep, there's the home page. So we've got a tab, yep, right there. And if you click on the more, read more, yep. And so, yeah, you can see a whole list of orders from the director and press releases related to those orders, and then information about the relief program, including a link to the program there in the paragraph. And so that is open for payments and filings that were due starting March 20th through April 30th. Excuse me. And so somebody who has not yet applied can still apply for that entire period. And presumably, if they meet the criteria, which are kind of laid out on the website and also on the application, then they can still have prior payments deferred for 60 days beyond the original due date. And I can also tell you that while we're still working on exactly what the details will be, the department is planning to have additional deferral programs going forward. Starting on May 1st for businesses, typically small businesses who are not able to make payments. It might be a bit different from the existing program in terms of how we'll administer it, but so that's why I can't share a ton more details at this point, but all that information will be up here on this website whenever it's available. But for now, for sales tax and withholding both, businesses are able to request deferrals for taxes that they owed starting March 20th.
Great, Tim. And what about those people who are actually, other than the sales tax and the income tax and the estimated tax, for small businesses, those three are probably most common. So sounded like for each one of these taxes, the deferrals, the relief of tax deferrals are all should be applied separately. Am I right, Tim?
Well, they can fill out, so the department is offering deferral for sales and withholding, and the application will have, it's the same application for both tax types, for sales and withholding both.
Okay.
And it's just a button that people need to click. You can apply for both at the same time.
I see.
So if you want both, just make sure you do both.
Okay, so what about the tax collection side of business? Because we know some clients owed state taxes, and there was installment agreement established already, but now with COVID-19, the payment, they didn't submit the payment for March, and they missed it, and now April looks like they will miss that again. So do they need to do anything with the state, or the state will automatically forgive those times between March, mid-March to whenever the executive order come in for open economy?
I don't think it would be, I don't think there's any sort of automatic program available for people who are already in a collections program, like somebody who's had a levy or in a payment plan. But I would definitely urge those taxpayers, those businesses, to reach out to the department. The department has been and will continue to work with those individuals on a case-by-case basis to see if something can be arranged. But it's, I think a lot of time it's too fact-specific on each case of how it should be handled. So I can't give a more precise answer than that, but I would definitely encourage people to contact the department.
Sure. And one question from a taxpayer who had received the $25,000 relief grant from IEDA and to their business. So from the Department of Revenue standpoint, is that a taxable income or that is not taxable income?
This is Mike. So there's, in addition to the IEDA grant program that you just mentioned, there's a number of federal programs that are also available. You mentioned the payroll protection program earlier.
Right.
The department is reviewing all of those programs to determine if and to what extent those grants may be included in income. So we don't have an answer right now for all of those different programs, but we hope to be able to provide some guidance in the not too distant future.
Great. So that is definitely under the radar, and the state knows that the guidance needs to come out for the taxpayers. Great.
That's right. Yep.
Great. And what about ongoing audit, income tax audit? And would that be continue as normal, or there is a maybe there is a plan to do that later when we get into the open economy stage?
This is Mike again. The compliance area is continuing on with its audits as usual. There has been no stopping of that. Now that there are obviously changes that have needed to be made because of the business disruptions. The department has a very large majority of its employees working from home now. Those that can, we have a lot of security requirements because we work with sensitive taxpayer data. So it took a little bit of time to make sure that those requirements were met for those people working at home. And there have been some changes in exams and audits because a lot of our employees are working remotely. For example, we've largely ceased on-site visits for the time being. A lot of exams are done through a so-called desk audit, where the correspondence between the examiner and the taxpayer or their representative. That often involves a lot of exchange of documents. So we are working on setting up some secure portals to allow taxpayers to transfer information electronically and securely. There are a number of different documents and signatures that require notarization. The department has removed the notarization requirement on a lot of documents for the time being. So that's eased the burden on the compliance area. So, obviously things are changed a little bit and they're slowed down a little bit, but overall the department is continuing in its compliance areas.
So we have attendees and posted the question I asked earlier, which is the state funds that they received, the $25,000, and so now because we whether it's taxable or not is not clear. So what would be your recommendation, Mike, for documentation gathering? So should taxpayer in any way making sure that to document how they properly spend the funds for a business? We obviously don't want to see a lavish vacation out of $25,000. Of course, we can't go anywhere, but just giving a silly example. So what's your recommendation of the taxpayers to make sure that they're in compliance with receiving that money and spending that properly?
I think the advice you gave is spot on. I would advise taxpayers to follow the requirements of the program that they receive the grant through. Obviously, just like any other tax issue, document. Keep those documents for future use, and keep your eye out for guidance from the department and from the IRS. Frankly, a lot of the questions that I think are still outstanding, the department is in the same position as a lot of taxpayers. We're waiting on some guidance from the IRS to determine how those grants, how those forgivable loans may be treated from an income tax perspective. Mm-hmm. Because the state of Iowa uses the federal income tax code to calculate, in large part, Iowa income taxes. you know, a lot of the Iowa determinations are dependent on what happens at the federal level. So yes, definitely keep documentation, follow the requirements of your program, and keep your eye open for guidance from the department and from the IRS about how those monies will be treated.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And I also have another question for Beth. And this participant asked for how long should the application, how long should they be waiting if they put in unemployment insurance claim and they're waiting? So what is the average time they should think that they wait? Then if not, they should contact the department. They want to be sensitive, not becoming those impatient, you know, claimers, and they want to know the average time.
So if it's a traditional unemployment claim and it's a matter of an individual being laid off by their employer or being unable to work, but they have an employer and they get W-2 wages, we've been paying those claims within 7 to 10 days very easily. If it's someone who is self-employed, and is the theory that they just applied recently for a self-employed claim?
I would say that, you know, just based on the name of the participants, I knew that is maybe a 1099 miscellaneous kind of income from real estate commission income. So that kind of income, and how long would that be to put in the application then till the time getting the payment for unemployment?
Well, it depends on whether they provide the appropriate amount of documentation to establish their income. So that'll be one factor that'll determine or drive how long it takes to get them paid. That sounds a little more complex. The thing to keep in mind about the self-employed claims, every single one of those has to be reviewed by a person. There's no batch processing. There's no, you know, with traditional unemployment claims, if you've got them all, you've got it all filled out, we can move your claim through very, very quickly with almost no human review required. But all of the self-employed claims require hands-on reviewing. So I would say probably a couple of weeks would be a good estimate. We have been getting them now that we're moving through those claims pretty quickly, it should go faster. And if we need more documentation, they would get an email or a phone call saying, this is what we need. And then the response time would depend on it, or would drive when they then get paid.
So if they're really lacking of documentation, they will be notified by email or phone calls. So knowing their application is pending.
That, yes, that we have reviewed their application and that it lacks the necessary documentation. One thing to keep in mind, we've been trying to also let the self-employed know is because of the way the system is set up, everybody who files an unemployment claim gets this letter on a green piece of paper. And for those that are self-employed, it's always going to say, we don't have any documentation of your record of your wages, which is true because if you're self-employed, we don't have access to your 1099. Those letters, they should just disregard them. They do not apply to the self-employed, but we don't have the capacity to go in and shut those off for the self-employed. That would take several weeks of programming and it's just not worth it. So we've added a message to the bottom of the letter saying, if you're self-employed and you receive this letter, please disregard, just throw it away. It's of no importance to your claim.
Great, those are great information. Then there is another question for you, but they want to know how many Iowans are working. I guess if you, maybe numbers is too difficult, but can we have a percentage? Before COVID-19, we have probably a few percentage of unemployment right now so that we can get a number of how many are still working.
Sure. Well, if you look at the webpage, we just posted the March unemployment rate on our, if you go to the webpage and then you scroll down to the bottom and you click on the, it says 3.7% March 2020 unemployment rate, and then you can click on it to view the latest data.
Am I on the right screen, Beth?
Let me see. No, no, go back. Go back to the home page.
Okay, just a second. Here, home
Okay.
page.
And scroll up a little bit. Or, well, you need to go back. You're in you need to go back one more page
Okay,
to get to the home page.
yeah.
Okay, now scroll down towards the bottom.
There.
There you go. So you click on that view latest data. And then you can scroll there. So we had a 3.7% unemployment rate. And I think if you go down a little bit further, it'll show you the number of Iowans who are employed currently or in March. So labor force is 1.72 million, employment was 1. So at the end of March, in March, we had 1.67 million people working. And we're probably pretty close to that now, even with the increased unemployment claims. We still have well over probably 1.5 million or 1.6 million people who are in the workforce currently.
Still working.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We'll know more. The rate that's going to be important is the rate that comes out in April, because that will be more reflective of the pandemic and its impact on unemployment in Iowa.
Great. All right. So we are pretty much we're pretty much in the last phase of our discussion, and thank you for the questions from participants. There's still few, and we are running out of time, but we hope that we brought you value, and we hope Beth and Jill and Tim's time, Mike's time are well spent here. And if you have any more questions, and you can email our firm and or simply call these ladies and also call Tim and Mike and to get them on the phone and to help you. And we hope that as a small business owner, we want you to feel that you are cared. And there is no way you should feel that there is nothing for you and you are being forgotten. And me, myself, Community CPA, Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit will just not allow that to happen. So here is, we had folks coming in to really teach us what's going on in the state. I think that will increase our confidence to know that the government is there and eyeing on our interest and benefit and making sure that we're taken care of. We really appreciate them and knowing that their heart is there for us. And thank you so much, Beth, Jill,
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tim, and Mike, and thank you